Well, it is the big breaking story that we're tracking here on Headlines today. At least 12 people have been killed in a terror attack on the Paris office of a French satirical magazine. At least 4 masked gunmen opened fire on journalists and exchanged shots with the police in the street outside before escaping in a black Citroën car. 3 attackers walked into the offices of the Charlie Hebdo in Paris' 11th arrondissement and fled away in a getaway car that was driven by the 4th terrorist. A major police operation is underway in Paris to catch the killers who are out on the streets at this point in time. The death toll includes 10 journalists and 2 police officers. The French President François Hollande headed to the scene of the attack. He has condemned the attack, called it a terror attack on the French soil. France has raised the security level to the highest, calling this a terror attack. All right, the Telegraph's Henry Samuel has reported that the attackers reportedly escaped in a black Citroën, wounding a policeman and then knocking over and wounding several other pedestrians as well. Smita Sharma is joining me with the latest. Smita, what more can you tell us at this point in time?
Well, Rishika, clearly your codes aren't filling out here that we witness here, in Paris. And what in fact police now are saying, they're not using the word, they're not using any reference to the exact number of the gunmen. They're not saying 2 or 3. Rather, they are saying that there were multiple gunmen and multiple attackers, really, who essentially came in, flashing these Kalashnikovs. One of them is reported to be holding even a rocket launcher as well. They were wearing kagols, they had black hoods and kagols, essentially these knee-length kind of clothes, and when they went in straight away into the 2nd floor of the building where the editorial department was located, and after really, that shootout there, they seemed to be, of course, shouting out that we have avenged the prophet, but, after which they managed to flee. So we do not know as to how many accomplices they have. That hot pursuit is still on the streets of Paris. Meanwhile, of course, throughout the country, high security alert issued there, of course, for schools, institutions, religious organizations. So, and President François Hollande, of course, has also himself set out for this magazine office.
Right. Also, Smita, you've been reporting that a direct fallout of the attack in Paris is being felt in India as well. High alert sounded across crowded places and markets.
In fact, this is...
Police officers came to tell all the residents to barricade themselves in their apartments and not to come out until things cleared out a little bit. As you can see, maybe behind me, there's still a lot of police stationed around the headquarters of Charlie Hebdo, ambulances too, a lot of crime scene investigation members probably on scene to try to get some elements for the investigation. And we know also that these 2 or 3 men left with 1 car before switching cars, and that's apparently when the police lost their track, probably around the outskirts of Paris, and that's the information we have so far.
Okay, now Ketevan, you say people still there holed up in their apartments until the police really work out how this attack took place, because Charlie Hebdo has been the site of attacks before, and there was a police presence outside these offices, was there not?
All right, Sebastian Francois is joining us on the phone line from Paris. Sebastian, what are the details you can share with us?
A few minutes ago, from the chasing of the car that's been escaped. The car that the 4 attackers, it seems now, have taken, have stolen from someone, and now, of course, the latest actually from the police, coming from the police, is also that the alert is at the maximum level. That means that a lot of restrictions is going to happen. I just got the news that, for example, at the daily life level, the school, every sortie, every outing of the schools have been cancelled. Movements are not restricted, but at least tempered, and to prevent schools from going out in public places. Of course, the major public tourist places are going to be over-secured because there could be targets. So that's actually the plan right now from the police.
All right. Also, Sebastian, is there any word on the 4 terrorists who have in fact fled? We're given to understand that there were 3 masked gunmen and there was also a 4th terrorist who was in fact driving the vehicle. They've hijacked 2 cars. A hot pursuit is currently underway. What more can you tell us about that?
I haven't actually spoken to the police right now about that, because they themselves don't really share much about the pursuit. We know that they have been very well prepared. Automatic weapons, shotguns, car waiting. The images also show sadly a very cold attack where they had no fear in going in and shooting people. The only thing I can tell you is also the shock that not only the profession or not only our journalist profession,
right,
but all the
Absolutely.
countries is moved by...
Right, Sebastian, we request you to stay on with us. There is a ground report that is coming in from that particular building. Let's listen in.
Time has been taken at this moment right now. What we do know is François Hollande will also make a public speech at 8 p.m. this morning. Apparently he's cancelled all of his meetings for this afternoon, except for the moment a meeting with religious leaders for the best wishes for New Year's. For the moment, that has not been cancelled, but the rest we'll know more after the ministerial meeting, which has just begun.
And indeed, Marie, we heard briefly from the President, François Hollande, earlier on this morning, saying that, this attack had happened, but that the country had thwarted a number of attacks in recent weeks. Did he not?
Yes, he indeed did say that. It's also a chance to reassure the French public that this is an event that the French government authorities are constantly monitoring, people on high alert, and that several attacks have been thwarted in the past. Of course, it's difficult to know whether this is a lone wolf case, that this has actually come out of nowhere, that this is a little bit difficult to have monitored in the past, or whether this is something that has been premeditated for a long time and perhaps the authorities could have caught up with. That's something that I'm sure the President will be addressing in the next few hours.
Okay, Mairead Dundas there outside the Elysee Palace, where the government is holding an emergency meeting. Thank you indeed. We'll no doubt be checking in with you again very shortly. Well, international reactions to the Paris.
All right. That was a ground report that was in fact coming in from Paris. Sebastian, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah.
Yeah. Sebastian, we just heard, a reporter on the ground, in fact, talk about the possibility of an intelligence failure, given the fact that, this is a publication that has had a high threat perception ever since 2011, given the fact that there was riot police that has been guarding this particular building since 2011. Was this, at all a premeditated attack that perhaps the intelligence did not catch on to?
Maybe indeed. The president himself said that they prevented different attacks lately, even this month or last December, prevented different attacks that were planned on the ground. So this one, maybe they haven't seen it. The fact that actually this was already a protected building is also worrisome, and the fact that they were able to enter is also a concern. Why the police couldn't stop 3 people with guns to enter the building, it's shocking. Maybe they haven't seen it coming. That's the only thing I could say. So that's intelligence failure, maybe police failure. It could be also, maybe also the determination of the attackers also was high. I was just checking right now the Twitter, and there's a comment coming from one of the journalists from inside saying that those attackers were speaking French fluently, so they were
right.
French people then, and they were claiming to be from Al-Qaeda. That's at least what they said at the moment. Sadly, we are living a very, very sad moment in France.
Absolutely. Sebastian, I'd just like to ask you, there are unconfirmed reports doing the rounds at this point in time that the cartoonist, the particular cartoonist who had in fact, there was a series of, Danish cartoons that were reprinted by the publication. Also, there was a particular cartoonist who had in fact, printed pictures of the Prophet again in 2012, which has invited the ire of the Muslim community. There are unconfirmed reports that that particular cartoonist has in fact been gunned down. What are you hearing?
Sadly, I think I can confirm that Cabu, which is his name, Volinsky, the other famous cartoonist, both have been shot dead. This is, I mean, I'm quite emotional to talk about that right now. We all grew up with those images, with those satirical, polemic images, whatever you want to call it. This was an identity from the press, the fact that this paper was existing, and despite it was claiming to be non-political in the way that they were attacking or doing satiric against everybody, and the fact that yes, they were threatened after drawing those images, the satirical images of the Prophet.
Right.
And yes, they said, we won't bend down, we won't accept this threat, we will print it again. That was the idea behind freedom of press. We are not going to being threatened. We won't be actually, gunned down by those terrorists, by those threats. So the fact that those people, those icons of the freedom of press have been gunned down, this is one of the saddest days in the press for France. I mean, I'm really moved by that.
Right, Sebastian, thanks so much for joining us. It is a sad day indeed, Sebastian, not just for the press in France, but for the international community at large. What Sebastian is confirming to us is that the publication came out with its own caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad in 2012. After it reprinted the Danish cartoonist caricatures of the Prophet in 2011, that cartoonist who in fact belonged to the Charlie Hebdo, who published those cartoons of the Prophet in 2012, has been confirmed dead. That is what Sebastian is telling us. Remember, this is a publication that has remained brave in the face of continuous threat that has in fact been reported against it since 2011. That cartoonist who did in fact publish the cartoons, the caricatures of Prophet Muhammad in 2012 has reportedly been gunned down. Sad day indeed, not just for the freedom of the press in France, but for the freedom of the press all around the world. We're going to continue to track developments. News story that we're tracking, a dark day for the freedom of press across the world. 10 journalists and 2 policemen shot dead after gunmen storm a French satirical weekly publication headquarters in Paris. French President François Hollande calls the shooting a terror attack. Twelve people have reportedly died in the Paris attack on the Charlie Hebdo office. 5 people are believed to be in critical condition. There is a huge manhunt that is currently underway for 4 terrorists. There were 3 terrorists who reportedly entered the premises. It was a carefully planned and coordinated terror strike. They knew exactly where the editorial wing of Charlie Hebdo sits. They went there. There was unprecedented gunfire that was heard from the building, following which the 3 black hooded terrorists escaped the building with a 4th terrorist who was in fact driving the vehicle. They have gunned down 2 police personnel as well. 10 journalists, remember, have been killed. And as a local reporter from France, Sebastian, was speaking with Headlines Today a short while ago, he has in fact confirmed to us that the cartoonist who printed the pictures of the Prophet in 2012 is one of the 10 journalists who has been gunned down. The attackers, remember, have fled the building. There is a hot pursuit that is currently underway. The whereabouts of these attackers is currently unknown. This is the magazine Charlie Hebdo that had published the controversial cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad. They had reprinted the cartoons published by a Danish cartoonist in 2011. in 2012, they had in fact printed some more cartoons of the Prophet. That cartoonist, as Sebastian just told us, has been gunned down today. Those are disturbing visuals that we're bringing to you on your screens. We advise viewer discretion. As you can see on your screens, 2 terrorists there, in fact, shooting at a police personnel, following which they escape in that black Citroën that has been parked on the road. All right, slipping into a short break, we continue to track developments on this big developing story here on Headlines Today. Stay with us.